All right, we're back, and it is COMP123, the summer 2016 semester at Centennial, and we are week 12. Keep thinking that week is crazy. Week 12, part 3 of our broadcast. I want to talk about assignment number 7, all right, which is kind of the last assignment that we're going to be doing for this course in this semester, which is, we've already got to that point. Let's talk about assignment 7 a little bit. What do I want you to build? And I think there's only one piece that I'm missing to give you. It's due August 19th, so last day of classes, right? The last day of the last day, week 14. What are you going to build? You're going to build a mock, not a real one, movie streaming service, all right? This is how we're going to do it, right? I'm saying, right? The movie streaming service is actually going to be like Netflix, okay? I want you to think of this way. Instead of you actually, using Netflix, you're going to choose the movie and it's going to stream your movie, right? I've chosen some movies here that you can certainly use. Those examples of older movies, right? These are older movies. These are not new movies, right? Which is good. So what you do is this. You say, so it's good. Basically, you're going to kind of, in your mind, I want you to think about, you're going to create a multi-form application, so a few forms, and it's all around connecting to this Movie Bonanza service. Okay, that's what it is. The user will select the movie from a drop-down list, right? No database required. Okay, so you can actually physically type in. We'll talk about how to do that today, how to use a drop-down list, right? The selected movie will display its category and cost, how much it's going to cost to stream the movie in separate labels. And the application will then calculate the cost of the movie, including taxes, in a separate form. The cost will vary according to the category of the movie, as shown below. And the user will be given the option to buy the movie and have the DVD copy sent to him for an additional charge of $10. All right, so real old movie streaming service, right? That it doesn't happen anymore. Okay, this is what's happening. So this is I've just kind of given you some ideas of some old movies, right? As an example, and then some categories: comedy, drama, action, sci-fi, horror, thriller, whatever. And then with costs, $1.99, up to $4.99, and family for 99 cents. How about that, right? And then what you have is a little menu where we're going to talk about menus either today or next day, right? And how to basically what you can do is you can actually stream the movie, you can cancel, you can print your order. Oh my God, printing, right? We're not going to really print, right? Because no one prints anymore. But we're going to mock it up. And an about box. I want to look at the about box for this particular application. Okay, and so what I have is these 3 forms. Is that right? 20 marks functionality. It's not right. It's actually. See, I always find new things that are wrong with my things. 33 and 28. 33 and 28. Might as well copy that right there while I update everything. 33 and 28. Sorry about that. I always try and calculate everything properly, but you know how it is. So 33 and 28, 5 marks for internal documentation, and there's 6 marks. 6 marks for program structure. We'll talk about, and 4 marks. 4 marks for version control, of course. 4 marks for version control. There we go. So for a total of 76 points. Okay, that's what it is. 76 points. It's not real marks, right? This thing is out of 13, as you can see. It's a weird number. It's a number that's going to work for us because then only 10% left for your exam, right? So this is the last assignment you're going to get. There are no more tests. I'm not going to do any more quizzes or labs. I was going to do a lab, but I'm thinking I kind of put it together with this little assignment here because we're running out of time. And so you get this 13% assignment. They're going to do this little movie bonanza. What I've done also, if you look at the details, tells you what to do, right? How to put things together. But also down in the bottom, you can see that I have some screenshots, examples of what I want you to do. So to give you something, if you don't know how to do stuff, here you go. This would build this, right? Is what I'm asking you to do. So exactly what you need, to build, what it's going to look like with each form. So I'm giving you examples of all the forms, so there's no confusion. And again, in my style, when I write my assignments, each line tells you what to do and how to do it. Okay. Now I can go certainly through it all. For example, my selection form, you want to make a splash screen. Splash screen really is a splash form. And I asked you to do it as a bonus last time. Now I'm asking you to do it for sure, because I've given you the way to do it, right? Drop-down list, we're going to talk about what a drop-down list is and how to use that. Group boxes, how to create group boxes. It's a container object, right? We're going to talk about that. We've done a picture box before. We need to use the resources, the application resources in order for us to do that. And one thing I forgot to do, I have to admit, is I have to go back to, if we go to Dropbox, notice that I have 90% out of 100. It means we have 10% left for a final exam. If we go back to Dropbox for a second, I want to take a look at that, this Movie Bonanza thing. What I want to do here is I also want to add in the some image files for you guys, because I do have the images for the movies, right? There we go. So that way you don't have to go and download them. If you really want to use the images for the movies, just put them, enter them inside your in the resources of your project that you're going to be creating. Okay. So that's assignment 7. Let's keep going. So when you click the next button, the only time the next button is going to be available when you make a selection. The next button for the first form, which looks like this. So here's your first form. This next button is going to be grayed out until you make a selection. Once you make a selection, you can click next, right? And that's your movie, right? And then your order form, it's going to display whatever you picked here. This is the challenge. You're going to take the information from this and somehow pass it on to the second form. Remember how we did that? There's a bunch of ways, like creating properties of the order form, and during the creation of the order form from the selection form, we're going to fill in those properties with all the data. That's the way to do it, the easy way, right? So we're going to pass the data from one form to the other, right? We also, if you notice, have a little menu here. When you click the File menu, it's going to pull down this File menu that looks like this: Print, Stream, or Cancel, right? And the File menu, when you actually click Print, it's going to put up a little message box that says Printing. Thank you for, are you sure you want to, are you sure you want to print? Yes? Press OK. Cancel? No. And then it'll just go away. It's just going to mock up the printing process. There's no printing. I'll give you a bonus, though, if you make it come up with a print preview. That's a whole other thing that you have to research on your own, how to make that happen, a print preview. It's more challenging to do, but I'll give you a chance to get that as a bonus. When you click the Stream button, right, it's going to, either if you click this button here, the Stream button, or if you click the Stream button in the menu, by the way, they're going to share the same method, the same event handler for the stream or the cancel. Stream and cancel. Okay, example: stream in the button, stream in the file menu, same event. Stream the cancel in the file menu and the cancel in the button, same event. Makes sense, right? So that it doesn't do, it's not two different events for that. And I've asked you to do that inside the application. If I click on order the DVD, right, then it's going to add an additional $10 cost up here, right? DVD, $10, and it's going to calculate the stuff a little differently, right? That's what it's going to do. If you click the Stream button here, or if you click the Stream button in the menu, it's going to pull up this little stream form that says, thank you for choosing Movie Bonanza. Your credit card will be charged whatever dollars you chose, whatever your movie you chose, plus the DVD maximum. And then whatever your movie is will begin streaming shortly. That's it. And press OK. So it's really not actually streaming anything. How about this? If you actually make it stream something, I'll give you a big bonus. I'm joking. You can't. It's too hard. That's how it works. So what do I need? I need the archive of your project files on eCentennial and a link to your GitHub for this one. The rubric is here, as well as I've created a rubric online as normal, so you can actually see what you're getting marks for. And again, this is due 13% is due the last week of the last day of the last week of classes, so it's 2 weeks from now. Can't believe it. 2 weeks left. Questions around assignment 7. It's the last assignment, and again, so just to reiterate this for people who are watching the video and they're watching live, there is no more quizzes and no more labs, just based on the way we've kind of been flowing this our time. I've had to kind of make a few adjustments, and that way we'll only have one assignment left and the exam, and that's it. Speaking about the exam, it's going to be practical, 100%. There's not going to be any multiple choice, true, false, none of that stuff. You're going to build something. You're going to build a form, some kind of web form, or Windows form, I mean, because At the end of the day, that's what we've been doing for this last half of the semester. Will there be data? If there will be, I'll give you all the data that you need, right? Anything that, it'll be open book, right? Open internet. You'll have access to everything, right? So don't despair, and it'll only be worth 10%. So worst case scenario, even if you mess it up, it's not going to kill you, right? So please be aware of that. That's coming. I will do a review on the Tuesday of the day we get to, of the last week. So what would that day be? Tuesday, 19th, 18th, 17th, 16th, right? The 16th of August, we'll do a review. So I'll go over all the stuff that I'm potentially going to be putting on the exam. So please attend or watch that video. And so that'll be doing that, only that on that day. There won't be anything else. No new material on the week 14. It's just review and the exam. That's it. Okay? Questions around this stuff before we continue with the real work we have to do? Everyone's golden. Everyone has no questions. Yes?
Can you learn at least the YouTube free video inside the stream?
Free video in the stream? No, we have no time for that. I will let you. If you do it, I'll give you a bonus mark. How about that? No free video in the stream. You're a funny person. Don't put my videos in the stream. Okay, know what I'm saying. Anyone else have any questions? Girls? No? You're good? Okay. All right, so let's chop this down, and let's get to the real fun work, which is in Visual Studio. So today we want to talk about a couple of those components we just talked about, like the About box. We talked about some kind of list view, like a drop-down list. We're going to talk about that. And some other components we haven't talked about, the menu. We have to get to those things because those are all going to be required in your final assignment. After this assignment, you would have had, I'm not joking around, at least 80% of all the stuff that you're going to need for a job. Okay, seriously, if you're going to go into an ASP.NET, or the .NET framework, Windows Forms, something in a job, like for example in Workopolis. I know I had a student lately who got a job at Workopolis, and I was talking to the manager yesterday, and he says that they just do .NET, right, or Workopolis. That's fantastic. So there's all kinds of opportunities there. I know they're always looking for co-op opportunities at Workopolis. This is a fantastic way to do that with learning .NET technology. So the stuff you're going to learn today, and the stuff you've learned all the second half, is all the things that you would need really to propel you into working with .NET. Okay, let's take a look at this. So I'm opening up a new project. Let's do this together. And one day when my virtual machine responds, I'm going to open up a new C# project for Windows. Obviously, it's going to be a Windows Form application. There we go. And we're going to call this, put it in the right place, we're going to call this COMP123 Summer 2016, and it's going to be lesson 12. There we go. All right, let's open this thing up. Okay, very cool. We got this form, and what I want to do here is I want to create almost like a little form about a list box and all this kind of stuff. So we're going to call this our list form, all right? So we're going to rename the form. Remember how we rename forms? As a review, we right-click on the form, rename, and we're going to call this list form. I'm calling it list form because I want to connect it to a couple things. First, I want to show you the easy way, and then over the next couple of classes, I'm going to show you how to actually connect it to a database. How do I connect one single object, one single element, not the data grid view. Data grid view is really great opportunity to connect to a database, but we also want to be able to connect individual controls. How do I connect individual controls to a data source? And I'm going to talk about that as well. Again, not required on your final assignment, just a bonus marks. Okay, so here's my list form. Again, I always like to figure out the properties of my list form. One of the things I always like to do for my list forms is I want to always start it center screen. So the start position, I'm going to start the start position at center screen. I'm going to change the text tags to say what this form is about. So it's a list form, right? We're going to talk about the list itself. And again, every time we create a new form, for me, it's always an opportunity to learn or kind of go back and over the stuff we have done already. Like for example, I want to add a button, and I want the button to be a next button, which is going to take me to the next form. All right, let's try this out. So how do I do this? I'm going to go to my toolbox. And even though we've done this before, I'm going to drag and drop the button in here. I'm going to change the font of the button, right? So, I mean, I like a larger font because I'm an old guy, right? So, not that old. I'm going to change the, the size of the font to 20. And we're going to choose, my favorite one that I have here, Lucida Sans, just because, I feel like it. You can choose whatever font you like, okay? And when I do that, of course, I got to resize my box so that it makes sense. Can't just say but. Can't say but. It has to say button, right? At least, or button. Now this is going to say button 1. I'm going to change this. Instead of button 1, it's going to be say next, right? That's what it's going to say, the next button. And up here, of course, I'm going to call it the next button. So the button itself is going to be called next button. Because we want to name the button, and in the application, the assignment that I gave you just now, I've asked you to name things properly. Again, that's part of the program structure marks is name things properly. Make sure that all private variables are called are used in underscore, like we've done the whole time that we've been here together, right? I've got my next button, and if it's a little big, you can always resize it if you don't like it so big. I don't know, maybe it's okay. And this next button, what it's going to do is going to take us to the next page, yeah? So I've got my next button, and maybe what I want to do is make my form just a little bit bigger, just so that it makes sense. My list form. Lists are a little longer. So how do I make a list? So here's a list view, right? There's a list view, and there's a link label. What do I mean by the, oh, hey, why don't I also add in a group box? Here's a group box. So I'm going to take a group box, drag it in here. There's my group box. A group box is actually a container object. So if I take the group box and kind of put it this big, inside the group box, I can actually name this. This is the list group box, we'll call it. List group box. List group box. It's just a container object. That's all it is. So inside the group box, it's like a container within the container of the form itself. That's what it is. Notice also I have a little label here, and the group box is used to kind of indicate that this group of buttons are related, or this group of controls are all related, right? For example, profile. If I was going to do a user profile, then the group box would have my user profile, my username, password, that kind of stuff, whatever I wanted in there, in that particular box. And you can drag and drop controls inside this box. Let me show you. So first of all, that's one. The second thing is the group box also has a text attribute. So if I go down to the property where it says group box 1, I can change this. For example, I can say, my list view, right? And that's what it'll say on top of the group box. It'll say my list view. Make sense? So it's kind of like an indicator of what's going to go in here. And you can also change the size of the box and the font that's that's in here. You can do all kinds of modifications here. The background that's inside the box can be different than the background on the outside. You can play around, but it's just a container, all right? So now if I grab a list box, here's a list box, right? And if I grab this list box and I drag it inside this group box, right, there it is. And if I take this and I can notice that there's little handles that come up, these little clear handles that come up that kind of give me a padding around the list box itself, right? This group box, I mean. And if this list box, if let's say for example I want to have a list box that I can pull down, there's different ways of doing this, by the way. Let's say this list box has a list of provinces, right? So this is my list box. We'll call this the province list box. Province list box, right? And the province list box it's a collection. Think of what it sounds like. List box. List box means it has a list of items that are inside of it, right? I can add things dynamically to the list box programmatically, right? I can do that. I can fill up the list box with whatever I want, or I can hand bomb it right here. Hey, for your assignment, if you actually just put it in here, it's okay, right? Like this. For example, let's get the province list to see if we can figure out all the provinces. I don't remember all the provinces offhand, so I'm just going to go and I'm going to miss something. Province. I don't want to be ridiculed. Province list. Canada. Right? Provinces and territories, fantastic. All right, there we go. Let's take this list of stuff, copy it, go over here, and hopefully it'll be pasted nice. Ah, fantastic, right? So these are all the provinces in there. I've just done that, and press OK. Now, if you notice, the provinces come up here, right? These are all the provinces up. Now, if it doesn't fit, like it doesn't fit right now, you have a little scroll bar. Let's see how this looks when we actually produce it. I run this thing, and you can see that's in the middle. And if I want to pull it up for you guys can see, it's quite small list because I haven't modified the default font size. Big button, small list. Doesn't make any sense, right? So I might want to make this a little bigger for you guys. I made it this big, by the way, so you guys can see everything, not because I'm really blind, right? So if I select something, you can see I can select one, or with the control, right, or command, whatever it's going to be, I can try and select. Can I select multiple options? Let's see. Right now, no, right? Can I turn that on, that feature? Let's see. Here's also something else. Here, how each of everything is in sorted order because I just dragged and dropped it from or copied and pasted from a website. It may not be in sorted order, and what you can do is you can set that up. Okay, so let's do some modifications. Let's make my form bigger because this is just too small, right? Just so that way we can see a bigger form, much bigger example. We'll make the group box. Here's something that the group box does. So I'm actually selecting the group box now. Notice that there's a little handle up here that shows this my four-way handle. I can move the whole thing now. So the group box and anything else inside of it, it groups controls together, and I can move them all together, right? So example, my group box is okay. I like where it is. But maybe what I want to do is make it a little bigger that can hold other kind of controls. And let's just make it so that instead of the list box being how big it is, let's make it a little bigger, not so big. Let's say 12, let's say, and we'll use Lucida Sans. There we go. See how big that is. That's better. Okay, maybe a little bit bigger, just because you guys can. So it's just for you, so you guys can see it properly on the screen when you're doing the video stuff. Okay. Also, you can make it so that it can hit most of the sizes. If I want to, I can display the whole box right like this, but that doesn't. Sometimes that doesn't make any sense. What you're looking at is maybe displaying half the box, right, and maybe some other things down here, which is what we're going to do. All right. So I'm going to click the province, as an example. When I click the province, I can do stuff. Let's look at other options for the list box. All right. So allow drop. Allow drop allows me to do drag and drop. So I can actually drag and drop stuff onto the list box. We're not going to explore drag and drop in this course, only because we don't have any time. It requires 3 controls to get that done, drag and drop. The origin, and this is all, I'm talking about 3 functions. The origin, the target, and then the actual drop, the moving procedure. All those methods have to be in to do drag and drop properly, right? It's a little bit complex for you guys. Just leave it alone. Back color, of course, we've done that. Border style, fixed 3D. I can choose other things like, for example, fixed single, or if I really want to, I can go none. That takes the border away. Again, the result of none looks like this. So there is no border. Again, sometimes that's okay. Notice again, I can just choose one. I can scroll down. I can see the entire list, right? But I cannot. It does not allow me to choose multiple selections. Okay, I can't select a broad range. I can't multi-select, right? List box. What else? Causes validation is true. Column width I can decide on. So I can have multiple columns in here too. For example, notice like my column width is 0. What does this mean? Column width 0. My context menu strip, there's none. My cursor, my data source, no data source, right? I can choose a data source if I really want to. There's 2 places I can do that. Here within the properties, or this little smart arrow again, just like we did it for our data grid view. If I click onto it, you can see that I can use a data bound item. I can connect this, right, as an example, because right now it's an unbound mode. If I click this, it's going to ask me, well, what do I want to bind it to? And I have to connect to a data source. In my project, I have no data source right now, so there's nothing to connect it to. And if I do, it's going to ask me which table do I want to link it to. So linking it to a table is something else we're going to do another day, not today. But eventually what we can do is instead of us hand bombing the information here, like inside the UI, we can actually link it to a real data source, which is really what we want to do. Okay, so we don't want to do this. That's one thing we can do. Let's see what else we can do here for the list box. Location, locked, margin. and tabs, all this kind of stuff is here, right? Let me just make sure that I have the right thing selected, because I think there's other things we missed. Data source, what else we have here? For color, just want to make sure I hit the big ones for you guys. Modifiers private, right to left, no. Selection mode is 1, there you go, right? So if I go, instead of 1, I go multiple, simple. Here's multiple simple. What does multiple simple do? If I press, kind of go, and I want to kind of do, more than one, right? I can select with the shift key, I can select more than one option, right? But I have to set that up. I have to set that up here in the selection mode. That's multiple simple. Multiple complex or extended, multi-extended, right? If I try to do that, and let's see what that does for us. So I can do this again, same idea. Or if I use the control key or the command, let's see, where's shift key? Hold on a second. Multiple extended. I think if I use multiple keys, it allows me to do more than one. I'll move it around. Okay, so we'll talk about those menus, a menu option or selection options a little bit differently. So let's put it back down to 1. So 1, only one option. And for your assignment, 1. Okay, please leave it at 1. If we make it multi-selection, it's going to screw up, right? That's for sure. All right. Sorted. Sorted means, is it sorted? Is the list going to appear sorted in the window or not? Sometimes you want to do that. Sometimes you have a reason why there's a certain order in your list, right? So we can choose true if we want it sorted, and it's going to try and sort it for us. Whatever we enter, it's just going to resort in sorted order. That's a really convenient thing, right? So we don't have to worry about entering data. We can enter things the way we want to and then sort it later. Use tab stops is true. Use weight cursor false. Value member invisibility is true. So all the a lot of the things that are the same. Okay, I want to get a value from this list. When I click on the list, I want to get that value into a text box. So I need a text box. And we're going to call this, first of all, I'll have a label. There's a label. And of course, we're going to change the size of the label to, first of all, we'll choose Lucida Sans. Remember the way that I can assign all the same stuff? I can assign it to the form itself, and then it assigns the styles to everything inside the form. That's okay for sometimes, but for this time, I only want to make it 14, let's say. And there it is. There's my label. And I can also choose if I want to make it bold or not, which I do. There's my label. And I want to call this the province label. That's the type. That's the name of the label, province label. And then, of course, I want to kind of go down in here and call it province. So I'm just kind of naming what I'm getting from my province. I'm choosing a province, and it's going to come in here, right? All right, let's try a text box. So we're going to take a text box. This is all stuff we know and we already know how to use. Text box, again, I'm going to make sure the text box is the same size in terms of our font as the label and the same font type, right? Because you want to kind of match one with the other. You don't want to try and use different fonts. It looks funny if you do that. What I probably want to do is make it a little bit larger so it fits. I mean, if Newfoundland and Labrador fits, this should fit inside there too, right? What do I want to do? Right. First of all, make sure I name it properly. Province text box. Okay, cool. I want to double click. When I click on this, I click on one of my selections. When I make a selection, this is what I want to do. I'm thinking about the effect of the business logic. I want the selection to be displayed in my province text box. Okay, let's do that. So how do I do that? If I click on this and look at my events, here's all the different kinds of events. Now take a look at what this does. It says selected index changed. Okay, so when my selected index changes, right, then I want to do something. This is a good event, and if I double click on it, it's going to write the event for me. Okay, the event stub. So when my province list box, that's the name of the control, right? My selected index changes, I want to do something. I want to take that, whatever that index is, and where do you think I'm going to get that index? I kind of showed you guys this when we did database, right? Remember that there's two objects I'm getting into my event handler. The sender, what I clicked on, and the E, the event arguments, right? If I look at the event arguments, it's different for every event handler. So if I go E dot, right, you can see that in this particular case, I'm not getting much, right? How about, though, the sender object? If I go sender dot, do I get anything else in here too? And the answer is no, right? So how do I get the selected index? I want to get the selected index, whatever it is. Whatever I'm clicking on, I want to get that value and show on the other one. And I want to do something like this. I want to say something like province textbox dot text, that's what I want to make it, is equal to whatever I clicked on. Well, let's look at the province list box and see what I get. Province list box dot, okay, remember it's a list. And I have options in here in terms of my text change, all the same stuff that I have in here, right? However, I have other ones as well, right? And if I look through here, if you're unsure, you can look through here. Accepts return. These are all the allowed drops, anchor, auto-complete source, auto source offset, back color, border style. I can affect everything, right? Bring to front, causes validation, character casing. Like if you go through here, my clear and clear undo, right? Those are methods that I'm going to get, right? Contains. I can check to see if my province text box contains something. That's what it does. If I click on contains, it tells me that. It says retrieves a value indicating whether the specified control is a child of a control. So it contains something else. Contain focus, context menu, if there's such a thing, control added, created, my cursor. Thank you, Visual Studio. It's giving me a lot of, a little bit of this. Data bindings, deselect all. Go through down here, right? And if I really go down here, I can go down to, this is nice and neat, select, okay, selected text, selected text. So whatever my selected text is inside my list, right? Selection start, because remember I can have a selection start and a selection end if I have multiple items I'm going to select, right? Remember selected index. The reason why I said selected is because in my mind I'm thinking I'm clicking on the selected index, whatever that is, right? All right, so that's selected text. I can try that. So if I go dot selected text, right? If I do this, so my province text box dot selected text, I'm going to take that and put it into my province text box dot text. I don't know. Sounds good to me. Let's try it out and see what happens. So blah blah. Try it out. Click this, and I got nothing. Right? What else could it be? Anyone else have ideas? Come on, guys. I need your help here. I can't be doing this all at the same time.
How did you have that? You said province textbook equals to selected list box text.
Well, that's no good, right?
Yeah.
How about if I do it the right way? So if I go province list box dot selected index, that's what I want to do. How about selected item? I know. How about selected value? Right? Selected value dot toString. Right? I can do that too. What if I just put selected value? Is that good enough? If I go toString, is that good enough? Selected value. I'm showing this to you because there's options, right? So let's see what happens. So if I do this and I run it and click onto there, and it gives me an issue. It says on unhandled exception, system dot whatever. It says use the new keyword to create an object instance. That's what it could be. View detail of the error. An object reference not set to an instance of an object. Right? So my selected value didn't come out. All right? Okay, what else could I check for? I want to show you this because you want to find out the right value. If you're going to look at the province text list box, right? And if I go to want to look at something selected, because remember, we're inside the selected index, right? So what if I just go selected index? Can I get that? I'm going to try different things. Selected index dot, I want to go toString again. All right, so I want to kind of transfer my index, whatever the index does, at least give me the number of what I'm looking at. I want to see that first. All right, let's try this out. So can I get that? So run it, click onto it, and that's 0, that's 1. So I'm getting something from here. Hey, can I go in there and modify the stuff? No, but I can search by typing a letter. So if I go M, it takes me to M. If I go N, it takes me to my first N, right? Or go down. If I go B, it takes me back up to British Columbia. That does that automatically from the out of the box, right? And it gives me my selected index. I'm close. Selected index is one thing I could be looking at. What else? So it's not selected index. What else could it be? How about selected item? Here's my selected item, right? Dot. I do that, toString. Remember, I'm converting toString because it could be something else, right? Is it that? Selected item toString? Because remember, I'm getting my selected index changed, right? Oh, that's pretty good, right? Can I modify it here? Can I do this? Can I change the value? I can. Should I be able to change the value? No, I should not. So what do I need to do to my text box so I can't change the value? Make it read only, right? So let's do that. So I'm going to go back to this, back to the drawing board, right? Go to here, pull up my properties, and what I want to do here for my properties is turn on read only, right? Now when I turn it on, right, it changes the color of the text box. It makes it gray. I don't want that. I want to change the background color to make it white, so it looks like it's, you know, it's active. Gray kind of looks like it's inactive, right? For me, so I don't like that. So this is my background is white. And then if you really want to, you can make your border style for, instead of fixed 3D, you can make it single, fixed single. So it's fixed to this to the way of looking like this, right? So province. So now I can't change anything. So I can put it in there, but if I go in there and try and change something, it's going to happen. There's a difference between this, but I can still select it, right? So I can still select it, right? And I can try and copy it. I can still do that from the province. If I don't want any interaction, you can't copy it, you can't do anything to it. That's different than read only. Read only allows me to read only, right? But it doesn't change the fact that I can do stuff to it. I can actually click in there. I don't want to click in there. How do you change that? Well, same thing. Go back to properties. There's the other value, which is enabled. Enabled is different than read only. Read only, you can see it, but you can click inside of there and select it. Enabled, if I turn this to false, it makes it disabled, which means you can't do anything with it at all. Let me see what happens there. So now if I go there, now notice that the province itself also dims out, right? What did I disable? That's not what I wanted. Undo. Let's try that again. I want this thing, not the whole form, right? Let's go back. I want enabled to be false for this thing, this one item. All right, there you go. If I go back in there again, and you can see that now I can't even click in there, nothing. Even if I go there and I can't select, I can't do anything. And this might be the best way, right? So if I don't want to mess with the object, I just want to display in a text box or in a label, make sure that it's disabled. Notice the other thing is that it becomes a little grayed out. So if you look at up here, I'm going to bring it up higher so you can see it. See how this is black and this is kind of gray? Can I change that? Let's see. I'm pointing this out because, again, this is all just UI, UI UX stuff, user experience. So that means my for color also should be a default color like black. I'm forcing it to be black. And now let's see what happens. Does it help? No. Why? It's disabled. That's why. And there's nothing really I can do to override that when it's disabled. But at least you can see the value. We can see British Columbia here or New Brunswick. It'll change whatever I want to put in there. I can put some stuff inside there, no problem. Okay, part 2. I click the next button. It's going to be an open button, and I'm going to pass the information from my text box control to the next form, right? Because this is part of the assignment, right? How do I do that? Well, first of all, I want to double click on my next button, And my next button is going to do a couple things. It's going to hide this form and show the new one, but it's going to instantiate a whole new form. Remember, I'm doing one form that cascades from the other one, right? Okay. Now remember, there's two ways of doing forms. I can make all my forms first. Remember that other way? Make them as objects and then show and hide them all. So they're already part of your whole project, right? That's one way of doing it. The other way is one form is used to instantiate or spawn a new form. Okay, that's what I can do from this form. So let's do it that way for this one. So I'm going to save. I'm going to go back to my Solution Explorer. I know it's a very simple example, but bear with me. We start with simple examples. So now I'm going to do this. So this is my selection form, and this is my confirmation form. Which province am I selecting? My list form, and then my final form. So we'll call it final form. So I'm going to get right-click. I'm going to add a new form, which is in my quick hit window. You can also go new item form, right? Here's my window form. I'm going to call this final form, finalform.cs. There we go. Here's my final form. It's a new form. And what I want to do is with my final form, I want to take the province information and display it. Hey, I already have the province list, right? I already have these two things. So guess what I'm going to do? Copy, right? So copy these and go to my final form and paste. That works kind of nice, and it saves us some time, right? Instead of me having to figure out those two things. And I want to also ask the question: is my province that I've selected, is this organized the right way? Is this called the province province label? What is it called? Let's take a look in my properties. Province label. All the properties, because it's a separate form, I can have the exact same name for my items that I had in my previous form, which is perfect, right? For me to transfer information. All right, so here's the way I want it to go. I want to, here's the business rules, instantiate a new form of type final form. I also need some properties in final form. I need to know that I can go back, all right? So I want to have a back button. Let's go into my list form, grab my next button, copy it, and go to my final form and paste it. And instead of next, I'm going to make this back. So I'm going to go back to properties. I'll call this the back button. This is not a cancel. This is a back button, right? And we'll call this back. There we go. Now this back button is going to take us back to the previous form. But in order for us to go back to the previous form, I'm going to close this one down and open up the first one, right? And I also want to remember the selection that I made. Oh, how do I do that, right? There's a couple ways of doing this. First of all, inside my form, the actual code in my form itself, I want to create a couple of, before I instantiate anything, I want to make some properties. So my final form, I'm going to open it up, a code view, which is F7. And if you notice here, I have my final form constructor method, and I'm going to create a new property. Okay, remember we did this before, of type list form. Here's my list form, and I'm going to call it lowercase list form. So I know that it's my list form that I'm accessing, right? You could also call this previous form or whatever you want. But I want to get a kind of a sense of how do I get back to my previous form, right, with my list form. That's one. I also have some objects that I've got in my form. My final form itself has a province text box, right? So I should be able to fill it up before I instantiate it, right? Okay, when I go back, I click the back button. Now, what I want to do, I'm doing this in reverse order. I want to show my previous form, so my list form. So this list form show. I want to do that, and I want this close. I'm closing this. Closing it actually closes this down. Goodbye, right? And I go back to my previous form. Okay, cool. Let's go to my list form, and in my list form, what I want to do is in my next button, here's where I instantiate the new form. So I'm going to say final form, right? We're going to call this final form, lowercase f, right? Is equal to a new final form object, right? So I've instantiated it now. Yay! I want to show it, but before I want to show it, I want to go final form dot list form, because this form here is equal to, we did this before, this, a reference to this form right here. I'm passing the reference, the information about the form that I'm in, to the next form, so that way it knows where to go back, right? And then I also want to go final form province. Oh man, how come I can't get the province text box? What was the thing I needed to do to make that province text box accessible for me? Well, inside the list form design, or the final form design, I can choose this final form, the text box, to be public, right? So if I go back to properties, I see that the modifier, right, for this one, modifiers is private. I can change private to public. So now this is a public item, so I can modify this form. I could also have done it with another way. I could have had a public property that connects to the form itself inside the actual object. So inside my final form, I could have had another property, and then that property would have been public, right? And then it would connect to this thing here. So that way I have more control. But for now, let's leave it like this. So now if I go back to my list form, can I see it? So province text box, right? There it is, .text is equal to, well, this is a problem. What if I never clicked on my form at all, right? What if I never did that? How do I make it so that the default value is they're going to show something, right? So my province text box.text is going to be equal to whatever my selected index is right here. This selected index is going to be my current province text box.text. So province text box.text. So they're the same name, but province text box.text is actually referring to, just to be clear, this province text box.text, not the final form text box, private province text box.text, not the next one, this one. Okay, but what happens if my province text box.text is empty because I haven't selected anything? Because by default, if I run this thing, right, by default, you can see that I have an option of not choosing anything at all, right? So how do I pre-select an option, one of these objects first? How do I do that? Right? There's ways. I'm just saying, right? So I want to be able to select, one of these. Like for example, Alberta, which is the 0th item in the list, the first item in the list, if you will, right? I want to select that item, and if it's selected, then it's going to trigger my selected index changed, which is going to make the province fill up with something, right? And if I choose to do this now, if I click this the way it is, Manitoba, it's filled with something. If I click the next button, it's going to open up the other one. It's not going to hide this one yet. So I want to hide this form. So when first I want a final form .show, I want to show this form, and then this .hide. I'm not going to close it off, because if I close it off, I close the application, because this is the originating form, right? Clear? So, couple steps. The first part when I want to do this, and I've said this before, is instantiate the next form, whatever the next form is, right? In this case, the final form. Now I'm instantiating an object of the next form. Just like we instantiate any object with a new keyword, right? And then the next thing is, pass a reference to the current form, right, which is this, right, to public property of the next form, whatever that is. This is the same. We're going to follow this procedure every single time, right? Okay, now pass some data, right, which we've done right here. And this is this part, and now we're going to show the next form, whatever the next form is, and then hide this one. Hide this form. These are all the steps you need, right? And you're going to do this every single time. Even if I have a cascade of forms, it goes one, next, 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 next. I'm going to keep doing the same thing over and over again. It's exactly the same. There's no difference, all right? Well, that means that if I have one form that instantiates another one, and then the other form instantiates another one, and I close the original form, all those forms close. right? Okay, so this is what my next button does. Let's test it to make sure. We're going to have some bugs. I know we're going to have some bugs. Let's test it and see what happens. So I'm going to kind of run this thing. Click Manitoba and go next. And yay, Manitoba gets passed over, right? If I go back, it should hide that one and go back to this one. And I already have Manitoba showing because that's what my selection was. Perfect, right? New Brunswick, next, back. Perfect, right? All right, issues. What if I have nothing selected? Should I be able to do this and press next? And the answer is I should not, right? I should not be able to go and not select the province, right, in my business rules. That's one of the issues. The other issue is like if I that whole X thing, if I close that form down somehow, then it just closes but doesn't do anything. I have to fix all those. I got to fix all those cases like we've done before, right? So let's fix that problem. First of all, let's do this. Let's make it so that my list form disables, and by the way, I asked to do this on the assignment, disables my next button until I make a selection. That's one way of securing that I'm going to select something, right? I could do it that way. Or what if on load I have a default selection of Alberta, right? How do I do that? Okay. I'm affecting the selection, the list items that I have in here, right? And I'm assuming that I have items in the list. In this case, I do. So I'm making some assumptions, and assumptions are always bad, but I know my application, so it's okay, right? Now remember, the way I got this, when I got the selected index changed is when I've double-clicked. That's one of the items, right? Let's go back to my listform.cs for a second. I could do what? I could do that, but let's pick a default province instead, right? So how do I, first of all, I want to do this on form load, right? So if I go back to my listform.cs, I want to double click on the background, right? Notice I clicked away from the group box, because if I click the group box is being clicked, right? I don't want to click that one, just the actual list form itself. So what I want is for my province list box, right? Now what I want to do is I want to select an object. My province list box has a list, right? So can I actually select an object this way in the list? Is that possible? Like list 0 selected? I can't do that, right? How about item? Can I select an item? Can I do like an items? Right? And if my items list and I want to item my index 0, I want to have that item is selected. I want to have that item selected. Right? So item 0, I want to select that item. How do I do that? I do select. I could do select, and I can select, activate the control. That's the whole control selected. Nah, that's not what I want. Right? But I want something with my select. I want to select my item somehow, like programmatically, right? So select an index, selected item, selected. That means it's already been selected, right? Selection mode, I can change the selection mode. Select next control, set selected. Set selected to, what's the index, right? And the Boolean value, it selects or clears the selection for the specific item in a list box index, the 0-based index of the list box. But what about the Boolean value, right? The Boolean value says, is the value true to select the specified item, otherwise false? Well, true is what we want, right? All right, so if I do this, I'm saying that the first item in the list is being selected automatically when I load my form, right? Let's try this out. So just a comment there, select the first item in the list, right? Save, and let's see if this works. So when I start off, Alberta is selected automatically. Now I can't, it's automatically selected, which means it automatically goes here because selected index is changed. That event gets automatically triggered upon my form load, which fills in my form information automatically. So now if I want to choose Ontario, as an example, I can choose that, right? And then click Next. Ontario. back, and maintains everything. Clear? So in this video, I've demonstrated a couple things. I've done this stuff here, this session, right? I've demonstrated the list box item control. I've demonstrated how to select an item inside the list box, which you need for your assignment number 7, right? I've demonstrated how to take the item that I've selected and put it inside my province, right? My text box. I've demonstrated how I can, when I click the next button, how to open up a new form again. I've done this before, right? But I'm doing it again because people have questions around it, right? And then, and I've gotten some emails, some funny emails around that. And then when I click the next button, I open up my new form and I pass the data across to my new form, right? I've also made it a default so that a default item is selected. I've done all those things for you, so for this particular form. Let's stop this right now. Let's take a break, 5 minutes. When we come back, we'll add some additional controls into my final form.